Hey everyone, this is Sam Warren with the Houston Chronicle, and I'm back with another Texans film review. This time I'm going to break down the best game that we've seen from the Texans rushing attack this season. It had 167 yards and a touchdown in Houston's 44-10 win over the Ravens, but Nick Caley's schemes showed potential for even more. So let's get into it. So the first play that we're going to dive into is Nick Chubb's 27-yard touchdown run early in the third quarter. Really ices the game if the game wasn't iced already. But what we're going to see from this play is a gap scheme called duo that's really been kind of a staple of Nick Caley's offense so far this year. Caley comes in from the Patriot system, the Ram system that utilized a lot more gap scheme type run stuff than what we saw from Bobby Slowick last year. Bobby Slowick did implement some gap scheme stuff at the end of the season that really started to work for the Texans. And I think Nick Caley is kind of just built on that throughout this season. And it's stuff that's really worked for the Texans. So what duo is that it's a scheme that's really, based on a double team at the point of attack and sets up kind of this designated hole that you want the Texans running back to run through. So where we're going to see that double team is here between Ed Ingram and Titus Howard double teaming this defensive tackle Travis Jones right here, and it really starts to work out that way. They push back Travis Jones really easily here. You see this insert from Xavier Hutchinson, but let's focus on their block first. They blow their guy right off the wall, right off the line of scrimmage. That's really kind of what sets up this play for success to start. And then also what we're going to see as we just kind of go down the line here is this is a heavy package which the Texans really used effectively against the Ravens yesterday, where you had Blake Fisher in, who's a normal tackle, but they have him as a eligible tight end. And they're using him there instead of, a typical tight end to get a little bit more of a blocking push. But then you see Blake, he pushes out the defensive end, Tavius Robinson, pretty easily. And he also gets help from this chip from Christian Kirk here as well. And then as we go back down the defensive or the offensive line, we're going to see kind of on the backside here, Jake Andrews does a really good job of taking his defensive tackle, John Jenkins, and making sure that he doesn't cross his face so that this hole opens up here and he doesn't get in on an early tackle on Nick Chubb. And then you get good blocks here from Drew Scruggs and Tay Ursary to make sure that they aren't that their defenders aren't coming in here and blowing the play up in the backfield as well. So as much as the offensive line does their job here, what I really want to focus in on is the blocking of this guy right here, Xavier Hutchinson. He has a tough job here as a receiver, inserting into the line of scrimmage, inserting into the play and being the lead blocker for Nick Chubb. But look at the capability that he has here, squaring up his responsibility in this blitzing safety, Ruben Lowry, and he forces him out to create this hole for Nick Chubb right here. And that's Xavier Hutchinson was the star of the day against the Ravens, having his first two career touchdowns, but he really shows here that he can be a force to be reckoned with as a blocker, as a receiver. So that's stuff that D'Amico Ryans loves. That's stuff that Nick Caley loves. That's how he's going to see more time on the field. And he was making great blocks in the run game pretty much the entire day, and we'll see a couple others coming down here down the line. But it's not just Hutchinson who makes a great play as a receiver on this. So before we see this Fisher block and you see Christian Kirk chip on him to give him a little bit more help. But look at what Kirk does here. He's taking this corner, TJ Tampa, and he runs him right into Keon Martin, who's the nickel defender in this situation. But by Christian Kirk doing this, taking the two defenders, he basically puts Martin out of position, takes Tampa out of the play, and is really just going to open up this opportunity for Chubb to take this ball to the house. And Chubb does his part in making this play successful as well. Just watch what his initial path is here. So you have Teddy Buchanan here, who's on the front side of this run. He should be on the front side of this run. He should be in a position possibly to make a play in the hole if he reads this play correctly. But just watching from Nick Chubb's line, he's able to press this vertical and force Buchanan kind of to commit to this backside hole right before he bounces that side, and Teddy Buchanan has no chance at making this play. And then also we're going to see a little bit of vintage Nick Chubb here, outrunning this nickel defender Martin here, and outrunning the rookie Malachi Starks, who's a really talented first round pick, good tackler, should be maybe in position to make this play, but you're just going to see bursts from Nick Chubb to be able to get to the end zone, outrun this defender, outrun Starks, and score for 27 yards. So this is just a gap scheme play that's really executed well by Nick Caley drawing it up, and then by the Texans being out there from the offensive line to the receivers to Chubb. Everybody on the field makes a great play in this duo run scheme, and ultimately that's how the Texans score their lone rushing touchdown of the day. So we just saw the success that the Texans can have in gap scheme runs with that Nick Chubb touchdown. But interestingly enough, that wasn't the focus of the Texans rushing attack on Sunday. For this first time this season, we saw them run more zone scheme runs than gap scheme runs against the Ravens, which is just interesting to see the way that Nick Caley can dial up different plays for this rushing attack. And as much as we saw the Texans have their only score of the day on the ground with that Chubb rushing touchdown in gap scheme, the Texans are very close to being a really good zone scheme running team, as well as highlighted as come by a few plays here coming up against the Ravens. So the first one that I'm going to dive into is a Woody Marks 11-yard gain early in the second quarter. And it's just kind of a final detail away from either being a super big gain or even a touchdown possibly. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is that it's just kind of a well-designed play by Nick Caley to get some defenders out and get the Texans in an advantageous situation. So what we're going to see here is this use of motion here gets Jalen Knoll to come across the line of scrimmage here, and he's going to take this safety here, Ruben Lowry, out of the box with him being in man coverage, and that just gives the Texans, a safety who is going to be in an advantageous position to make a tackle in an outside run to the right. He's taken out of the play by this motion here. So that's just good play design by Nick Caley. And then from what we're going to see from the play, we're just going to see good technique here by Titus Howard and Dalton Schultz, by Howard getting to this wide nine technique with Tavius Robinson on the edge, and Schultz tripping him to allow him to get on the outside to create kind of this seal and be able to create this wall in the zone scheme that you want. So there we see Howard be able to get to the outside, and then Schultz is going to go up and go up to his next responsibility. And then from there, we're also going to see good play from Ed Ingram here to get across his guy. It's the interior defensive lineman, Brent Urban here. So he's able to get outside and create kind of that wall as well with Howard. And then kind of on the backside here, we're going to see good stuff from Drew Scruggs and Tay Ursary. Tay with climbing to his guy, Scruggs being able to wash this defender and make sure that he doesn't get through. And then from there, we're also going to see good stuff from Schultz and the Texans skill players. So what we see here is Schultz kind of gets to this nickel defender here in Keon Martin. And when you have a tight end on a nickel corner who has a really big size advantage, you're going to want to see stuff like this with him just taking the guy 15 yards downfield, throwing him, taking him out of the play. So that's just good stuff from Dalton Schultz that at times last year and at times this year, you just really haven't seen. He hasn't shown up in run blocking. And so to see him being that aggressive, that stout, making plays like that, that's a really big improvement and something that could be really beneficial for this Texans rushing attack. And then on top of that, we're going to see another good block by Xavier Hutchinson here. He really kind of just, instead of being too aggressive and getting up in Nate Wiggins' face, he's going to wait for Wiggins to make his move and then really kind of adjust his technique accordingly. So Wiggins sees Woody Marks kind of get out to the edge. He's going to play the outside, and Hutchinson is able to wash him out and create this hole up here for Marks to run through. So that's great stuff by the majority of the offensive line and the Texans skill players in setting up some blocks. The one place that this play probably has some room to work is Jake Andrews right here. So Jake is going to try and get to Teddy Buchanan here up in the second level, this linebacker. And Jake is just not really able to get on this outside edge here. He makes good initial contacts, but you want to get to the outside edge and make sure that you're making this wall instead of kind of leaving open this lane to get outside. So while Jake makes good contact, he leaves Buchanan available to get out there and get to Woody Marks for a tackle. So as much as this kind of lane opens up, Buchanan is able kind of just to make this shoestring tackle. As you can see, if Marks is able to evade Buchanan, or if Jake Andrews is able to get a little bit more of a piece of him, there's really nothing but green grass here for Woody Marks to get downfield, possibly a touchdown or a way even bigger gain. So that just shows that the Texans can also be pretty stout in zone runs, and they're just not this one gap scheme team that has to create holes for their running backs. Lastly, we're going to look at another zone run that had the potential for more if the Texans could just iron out a couple of details. And that ends on coming on the Texans' basically final play of the game with Dameon Pierce getting this 10-yard run here on 3rd and 4 on an outside zone to the left, which basically allows Davis Mills with the backups to knee it out and the game pretty mercifully for the Ravens. But it did have the potential for more and a big game for Pierce if the Texans could just fix a couple of things here. So the first thing that we're going to see is the Texans are pretty in an advantageous situation for an outside zone play. They've got 7 guys lined up on the line, the Ravens do, and really nobody in the second level. You've got these 2 deep safeties as the last line of defense here. So when you're in a 3rd and 4 situation, as long as the Texans keep to their assignments, are able to block this decently well, Dameon Pierce should be able to get the first down and possibly more with nobody really kind of meeting him in the second level there. And we're going to see them do a pretty solid job of that just to start. The offensive line does their job for the most part. You see these blocks happen here. You've got Tay Ursary makes good initial contact. You've got the left guard and the center making pretty good contacts. You've got the backside not making sure that everything doesn't leak through and get to Pierce in the backfield. And then also on the front side run, you've got more Texan skill players making good blocks. You've got Harrison Bryant making good initial impacts. And you've got Xavier Hutchinson again getting out there and blocking, going to be end up doing a pretty nice job. And what we're going to see also, just to dive into the skill guys again, we saw some good blocking from Dalton Schultz, but here Harrison Bryant, when you're going up against another nickel defender, and Keon Martin again, he had a tough day in run coverage, but when you have a tight end on a nickel, this is the stuff that you want to see of pancake blocks, putting the guy into the ground, making sure that he's not making plays when you have that oversized advantage. So it's good stuff from him. And then kind of at the tail end of this play here, you see Xavier Hutchinson get on his man. He's fitting him up. He does a pretty nice job making that initial contact, making sure that he's not going to get after Pierce right away. But the first thing that could get cleaned up here is Tay Ursary just being able to maintain this outside edge, make sure this hole is a little bit cleaner for Pierce to run through. You get David Ojabo's arm in here and trips up Pierce a little bit. He's able to keep his feet, makes a really nice play there, but doesn't have to deal with breaking those tackles if Tay can kind of seal the edge a little bit there. But that's not the big issue with the offensive lineman in this play. The big issue here is when you have these backside blocks and outside zone have already managed this defender here for Ed Ingram here. He's got this guy. Now he's going to move off, and he's going to be looking for a second level player with this zone blocking scheme. But with all the players being walked up at the line, there's really nobody in the second level. So Ed kind of just aimlessly goes out there and doesn't really block anybody. But what we see here is if Ingram kind of immediately jumps, he notices there's nobody in the second level, and he gets up here to this safety, which ends up being kind of the second level player, so to speak. We're going to see Pierce be able to not have this one-on-one scenario, but he's going to have this blocked, and barely this backside safety would be the guy that he has to make miss or find his lane to get through. So if Ingram just gets to this safety here, that's going to be a really big play. It's a possible touchdown or a possibly really big gain. Maybe it's the end of the game and Ingram's just not fully into it when you're up that much, 44-10. But those are the types of plays that in game you can see the Texans' potential to be a really good zone scheme as well. So the Texans were able to have success in both gap and zone schemes against the Ravens on Sunday, and I think that's really what lent them to have the day that they did in Baltimore. By being multiple in the schemes that they were running, they didn't allow the Ravens to key in on one certain thing that they were doing, which I think just lent them to have success in both the gap and the zone schemes. And what we saw from that rushing attack for the Texans was probably the best holistic performance that we've seen in a while. The running backs were running well. The offensive line was blocking well and handling their assignments. What really impressed me was the way that the skill players were blocking when you have Dalton Schultz, Harrison Bryant, Xavier Hutchinson, Christian Kirk making key blocks like they did. That's something that can really take this rushing attack to the next level. But what really can take the rushing attack kind of up a degree is by honing in on those little details at the end of those zone runs and making those, 10, 11-yard gains into 20, 30-yard explosive runs that the Texans could have that possibility of doing. And as much as the Ravens defense has struggled and, you know, they're not the Ravens defense of old that the Texans played against. I think this is a performance that the Texans can really build momentum off of and, put that on tape and see like, hey, we have the confidence to be a team that can run for 150 yards a game, be out there and match that rushing attack with the uptick in production that CJ Stroud and this passing offense is having. So the Texans feel like as much as they've played the Titans and the Ravens over the past two games, this offense looks like it's moving in the right direction, and the running game is really providing a rhythm for them to do that. So thank you so much for watching and being tuned into these every week. I enjoy doing them. So thank you so much for the feedback as well, and I look forward to doing another one after the bye week in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.